it was brought up about something that I've been very involved in, and that's the inappropriate material that's being taught to our kids in our schools, including Urbandale. And let me just tell you what this inappropriate material is. They don't want to talk about this. And quite frankly, I get a lot of emails on this, and I can't even reply to the email with the graphic illustrations that are part of this material. The material that they have that they don't want to talk about is several different disgusting instances. One is an adult having sexual relations with a child. Number 2 is a cousin molesting his other cousin in an overnight. And number 3 is an older brother molesting his sister. That's disgusting. I'd rather you all in education focus a little bit more on teaching our kids the tools they need once they get out, that'd be math, science, and et cetera, that they be more productive in society. So I'm not going to let that go down, and I will fight till the very end to get rid of this porn. Thank you.
Brad, may I ask you what that had to do with the budget question?
You brought it up about the sinister, whatever it is, and that's what you brought it up, and I'd ask you the same question. What did that have to do? You brought up, and I'm not going to let you liberals put out all this false information.
Brad, you seem very angry.
I'm not angry. I'm tired of you all giving out misinformation, and I'm going to fight for the parents, and I'm going to continue to fight for the parents. And if there's anyone that thinks that this is appropriate to be taught in our schools, please let me know, because I do get a few emails in regards to that. But I want everyone to know, because it is inappropriate what's in those books that you all are using for your classrooms. I am mad. I'm mad because it disgusts me as a parent.
Brad, we've all agreed to have a civil discussion and not call names, and not, for example, like you did last year, telling me that I was afraid because I wasn't at the meeting because my daughter was getting chemo. Please calm it down and be civil.
You know what? I'm just fighting for the parents, and I'll continue to do that. And you brought
not all parents, Brad. Everybody has an opinion.
You know what?
All right.
Let's go back. EJ,
Senator,
take control.
Senator, why don't everybody's expressed their opinion on that issue, so let's move on. Appreciate it. As a matter of fact, the next question, I hesitate asking it, but I will. Eddie, why don't you start this off? It's a twofold question, and I think it's probably not as relevant as it might have been yesterday, but I'll ask it. Should we threaten jail for school teachers and librarians for teaching or keeping books in libraries that represent certain students and families, but others find offensive? A related question is, what do you propose to help recruit and retain K-12 teachers in the current education workforce shortage? Eddie, it's your turn.
Well, let me just address the first one last. I do like some of the proposals that the governor has proposed and some of our colleagues have proposed, including a $1,000 bonus retention for teachers. And let me just say, we love teachers. I mean, I'm a product of public schools, but I am for 100% all of the above options and strengthening every last option for parents. We took advantage of that for our families. I mean, my two older kids, my older girls, all public schools, but my boy, that was a little bit of a challenge. It didn't quite work for him, so we were glad there are other options for him. He did eventually graduate from Johnston, but we're glad that there were other options out there. And I'm for all of the above options for parents in terms of education. In terms of what was discussed just briefly, just moments ago, and the question directly, you gotta look back at this. We have R-rated movies. There are certain things that are just not, even if you enjoy that content, it's not age appropriate. The examples that Brad Zaun just mentioned, cousins sucking each other's private parts as part of a required curriculum. A stepdad masturbating in front and with his stepdaughter. Come on, are you kidding? Is that age appropriate for our children? Whether or not that's what you want to do and teach your kids, that's not the school's role to teach that and take over the moral authority that is against so many parents. And in terms of what should we do about it, I don't think anybody's talking about jailing. I don't think that's going to pass. But I think what the sentiment is that decision should be left to the parents, and the school should be looking at teaching our children the basics of how they can be successful, not teaching a moral argument. And yes, some people have mentioned that. I don't think that's for the legislature to decide. I think what parents are telling me, the bigger sentiment is that parents are telling me and telling all of our legislatures that the moral decision should be left to the parents and not the schools, in direct opposition of most of the parents.
Thank you. Bob Brownell, you want to touch this?
Much as I enjoy falling on my sword, I think I'll pass on this and let other folks comment.
All right, thank you. Mayor?
No, thanks.
Okay. I have a feeling, Catherine, you have a comment.
I may.
Go ahead.
First, I'll point out none of these materials are required in any course.
Yes, they are. Before I
wait
don't interrupt, but that is correct.
Excuse me, Eddie.
Eddie, please let Catherine
No,
speak. Please.
They're not. None of those volumes are required in any course. How do you know that? How do I know that? Because I worked there. And I'm the president of the board. And that's part of what's kind of bothering me about this whole thing. People typically are extremely fond of their kids' teachers. They're extremely fond of their local schools. The majority of our teachers and our staff are doing everything they possibly can to keep our students in school. If you remember a year ago, that was the issue. We have bent over backwards to keep our schools open and to do our best to try to bring students back to a better state of mental health, to take care of them, and to try to bring them up to where they should be as far as their learning. I'd like to point out that we have gone through every 100-year pandemic that we've never had before. And so from my perception, everyone is doing the best that they can. A lot of parents are saying, we don't know what's in the curriculum. We don't know what's in the library. Those are wide open. All you have to do is look on your courseware for your student. All you have to do is look on your school catalog in your library. It's all wide open. And it has been for years. And so when people say, I want more transparency, just like you, Brad, I'm asking, what more could we do? And, worst case, you don't want your kid reading a book, call the teacher and say, I don't want this. And they will happily provide you with an alternative if that's how you feel. And that has always been the case. And so I'm not sure exactly what's behind this. I would invite people to read those books. Most of them are autobiographical, and they're things that we don't really want to happen to anyone. And so you're perfectly free to have your kid not read those. Some of it is disturbing. I would acknowledge that. However, having those books available and having people be able to tell their stories, we have a lot of kids, I'm sorry, but we have a lot of kids who are in less than ideal life conditions. And do I want to know all about that? No, but as a counselor in a school, I did. It's heartbreaking. And so, at this point, I would invite you to read the books and live their stories if you can get a hold of them. The surest way to encourage everyone to read a book is to ban it. And you can look historically. You can't get a hold of those books now. Can't get them in the library. If you notice, let's see, what was the one that was just banned? Oh, Mouse, the story of the Holocaust. Because the Tennessee school banned it, it's on right now, it's on the top sellers on Amazon. You can hardly get a copy. So I would posit that if you really want to keep your kids from things you don't want them to know, that you take away their cell phone, you take away any electronic devices, and you don't let them hang out with their friends. Because honestly, and we have conditions in our country that are not stellar for kids. It's hard to grow up now. If you want to keep them from those influences, then you do that. But I can tell you that the wrongs in our society and the heartbreaking things for our kids are not coming from library books. Thanks.
Thank you, Catherine. Brad?
Well, thank you, EJ. It's a good question. I get fired up, and I think that Eddie Andrews said it perfectly. I think it's a parent's decision to make. I don't think it's appropriate that the schools, it's not their role to do this. Listen, I'm married to a former Des Moines Public Schools teacher. I love teachers. We have the best teachers in the United States here in Iowa. I'm hopeful that we could reward them. I know there's conversations about some kind of liability protection for teachers because they are put in a terrible position. I know that it isn't just urban, it's going on in rural Iowa where teachers are really in a bad position and can't defend themselves. And I'm not saying physically, but the way everything's set up, we want to do more for teachers. It's not about teachers. And I don't want to put any teacher in jail. I can tell you that the bill that's going to come out this coming week, there's negotiations going on with the governor that's really going to pretty much more highlight allowing parents to weigh in on this issue, that if they want their kids to give them the ability to say, no, I don't want you to expose my children to this repulsive autobiographies, whatever you want to call them. They just shouldn't be in our schools. I'm not interested in burning books. I'm not quite sure what happened in the state, the Tennessee or whatever you mentioned. But it's really about parents is what it's about. Allowing parents to have more input. And what's happened is during COVID, obviously the kids were doing online learning and a lot of parents were tuning in. And it really opened up a lot of eyes. And so we're really trying to put parents in a position where they have the opportunity to say what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. John?
I'll be brief, but first of all, these books are not required curriculum in the state of Iowa. The Iowa Board of Education does not require these in curriculum. They're in the libraries so that students, if they want to check these books out, they can. I feel as though it's a parent's choice to make a decision on this. And let's leave it up to parents and let's leave it up to local school boards to make those decisions instead of 150 legislators down at the state capitol here in Des Moines making those decisions. I've always been a big proponent of local control. Let the people in the communities, in the districts, make those decisions what are best for their kids. As for the education funding, we need to pay our teachers more money. We're 39th in the country, like I said, in education spending. And we have some school districts in the state of Iowa, more in the rural, that starting teachers at $33,000 a year. That's just barely above the poverty line. So we need to really focus on getting reimbursing and paying teachers a fair amount, because what teachers have been put through over the past 2 or 3 years, with the pandemic now and all these crazy things kids are doing to teachers with TikTok and all that stuff. I'm surprised that we don't have more teachers retiring from this profession at this time. I talked to a lot of them here in my pharmacy, and they're very frustrated, and they don't see the support. And then you see a state senator come out with these crazy comments about wanting to put teachers in jail. That's not going to bode well for people wanting to stay in this profession, and especially young people who are thinking about being teachers. When they see and hear these things, it's going to turn them away from the profession. So we've got to turn this around and really help Iowa become, again, a leader in education through K through 12 all the way up to our Regents universities.
Thank you, John. One observation I might make, when I come to these, I always look at the register before I leave the house. There's an article this morning, and I think that question about jailing, the jailing teachers is probably, as Senator Whitford said, off the table, but I won't comment beyond that, but that may not be relevant any longer. Anyway, I'm going to move to another question.